Yo, G's, how we doing? Let's get some ones in the chat if you can hear me. Let's see. All right, we got a one from Anish. Amandeep says one. All right, looks like you guys can hear me. So what we're doing today is I'm going to introduce you guys to custom webhooks. And this is how you can basically communicate between any softwares that you're using. I'm going to show you how to do it with Voiceflow and Make.com today. So for this example, I'm in our LC, our lead capture bot, our demo bot, and this is the one that would just send the name and email information to Airtable. But I'm going to adapt this to make a custom webhook, and send this into make.com. And then from there, you can do whatever you want with it. In this example, I'll show you, you can just add it to a Google Sheet. So let's get started. Really, we just need to change this last API block. This is the API block for Airtable. So I'm just going to go ahead and disconnect this. Let's actually copy, paste it. And now I'm just gonna, get rid of the Airtable URL. I don't need this stuff from the header, anything like that. And we'll leave this JSON as it is. So let's hop over into Make. And what we need to do, I'm in a brand new Make scenario. What we need to do is grab webhooks and grab a custom webhook. Now from here, we want to add a webhook. IP restrictions, none. I'll just call this Voiceflow demo. Save this. And now this is waiting. It says it's now listening for the data, and then it will automatically determine the data structure. So we just want to leave this. What we want to do is copy address to clipboard. All a webhook is basically a URL to send and receive information. So now let's head back into Voiceflow. For the URL, we're just going to put this here. Content type, application JSON, we'll leave that as is, and then we can just send over our same information that we've collected earlier, the name, email, status, all that good stuff. Now I'm just going to quickly remove this last field because we don't need this. We also don't need this comma. Now let's go ahead and test this with a send request. Sure, I have g123@gmail.com. Now if I generate this, we get status code 200. If I head back into Make, successfully determined. So we've successfully determined the data structure. Now if I run this again, this is now running. Head back in, resend this request. Head back into Make. You can see now if we open up this output bundle, we have all of our variables. So that's cool, but we can contact with this webhook URL without actually getting a response. So what we can do is add what's called a callback webhook, a callback URL that's going to actually show us in Voiceflow that, hey, we actually, we received that information correctly. So let's add a webhook response. Status, leave it at 200. And for the body, we now need to add some JSON, basically showing the things that we're adding. So, all right, in JSON format, in quotes, we'll have name, which is the variable, colon, space, and then in parentheses, we need to go into our webhook variable, grab the name, end quote, comma, space, in quotes again, we'll add email, colon, space, add our email, make sure that's in quotes, another comma, and then do the same thing for status. Now for status, we don't need to put this in quotes since it's not a string, so we're just going to then put this and then end bracket. Now I'm just going to take this over into the JSON formatter, paste this in, hit format beautify. Oh, I'm missing something. Let's see. Error on line 1. Do I have an extra bracket there? Oh, let me see. All right, so this is part of the troubleshooting game, right? Name. Let me just format this myself so I can see it a bit clearer. Email, status. Let me just test with false. All right, so that's all good. Must have just been complaining about something it didn't like. That's not, you know, the most always gives you the best response tool. So now I'm just going to delete this false, go back and add our status. Now we should run this module, leave this running. So now this second webhook response can accept some input. We can now go ahead and then resend a request, generate. And now you can see in Voiceflow, we can show the exact variables that we've received, the name, the input Gmail that we've gotten, all that good stuff. So let's just quickly see how we can, add this to a Google Sheet. I have this, webhook demonstration Google Sheet that I created. It's blank. I just added name, email, status at the top. So what we're going to do in make.com is just add a new module, Google Sheets. We're going to do add row. And then we can just drag right in the middle. All right. Now, I actually did a test earlier, so I'm just going to go ahead and copy and paste this module just because my email is up here and I don't want to have to select that. I want to expose that. So let me just copy this, head into here, and then I'll just paste this. Delete module. All right, cool. So basically, if you've been through the lessons, you know how this works. I selected the spreadsheet, which is the exact one that I just showed you. Selected the sheet name, and now we set the column range A to Z, and then from here we can just input our variables. So what I did is just, okay, in column A, right, in the spreadsheet, column A, we want the name. And so I'm going to go into these fields and add the name. And the same thing for the email. Okay, boom, add the email. Status, same thing, status. And we want to make sure that table contains headers. No. That means because since we put name, email, and status, that means the table has these headers, so we don't want to overwrite those, meaning it skips the first row, essentially. So now if I save this, we can run this scenario. And now if I send this request, all right, and in our spreadsheet, we have our name, email, and the status. Now, someone asked me earlier, they were having trouble leaving this so it's immediate as data arrives, so they could just leave this webhook going, and then they could send data, and whenever that data is sent, it automatically adds this, meaning they don't have to go and manually trigger this run button. So what you want to do is you want to add scheduling. And just a good safety measure, you can go to show in advanced settings, and you can set maximum number of results to 0, meaning it can do this, however many times it wants. Now, at this point, we don't even have to run this. If I just go into here, send a new request, name despite, change this to wagwan@gmail.com, generate. All right, head back into here. Okay, we did something wrong. Hold on. Run. Let's see, resend. All right. Now here we go. Now if I do this again, let me just double check. Despite, generate. All right, so automatically listening. So we want to leave the scheduling on. This is part of the troubleshooting. This is part of the process. You're going to have to deal with these kind of things, right? Yeah. Accept some data. Bear with me, G's. Yep, accepts. If I resend it again, it doesn't accept. So that means the automatic scheduling is not actually accepting data. So let's see why that is. Participate in ours. All right, let's redetermine this data structure. See if we can just send this through again. Let me see if I'm getting any questions in the chat really quick. All right, nothing so far. Okay. All right, we'll just ignore that. Is what it is. We can figure this out. I'll put a little text block on how to do this just so we keep this workshop nice and snippy. Unless I just see immediately as data arrives. And it's funny because actually in this scenario, I have this exact thing set up. And if I copy this address, just paste this in here, send a request, it actually does add it immediately, right? So let me just investigate what the difference between the scenario I already set up is and why it's immediately accepting data, right? So we have the VF webhook demo, same exact webhook here. I think it might be because I didn't add a header in here. So we have to show advanced settings and add a custom header. So for this, we want to do content type. We want to do application JSON. All right, now let's see if that makes a difference. Copy address, go back in here, send request. Doesn't make a difference. All right, let's see maximum number. Webhook. I think there might be an issue because actually I'm running from two different scenarios. Maybe not. All right. Anyway, so we can just work off this. But basically, something I also wanted to show you guys is an easy use case for this. Let's say you wanted to do some type of rescheduling bot, some type of voice bot, right? Last workshop we did was the AI voice caller. So essentially, you could do your whole voice flow bot. It captures, the user's name, their phone number, and then you could send that information to make.com, do some type of scheduling scenario where you can then send this to Bland AI to, let's say they go into your bot and they say reschedule call. All right, you can do some type of logic where it's like, okay, here's the name, here's the phone number, call this person. And then for instructions, you could dynamically allocate those instructions by AI by talking with your Calendly. You could say, hey, check Calendly, see what time their appointment is. Or if you collect that info in the voice bot, say, hey, what time's your appointment? What time would you like to reschedule for? You could pass that information over to Bland AI, and then you could have the voice bot call you from there. So that's just what I've done here. I took the exact call customer make a request HTTP module that we did in the Bland AI workshop. And I just added it at the end of this webhook. So essentially you could run all through this. You could, change this webhook demonstration so it was number, name, all that good stuff, and then send that through in the scenario, and you would get a call after that. And then you could, again, take that information. Remember how we set everything up so that you could see what time they were scheduled for, all that stuff. You could forward that to a spreadsheet such as this so you could keep track of all that new stuff, or integrate it with Calendly, again, so it automatically updates those appointments. Now, geez, tag me with questions in the chat. While you're going to do that, I'm just going to see why this is not accepting data immediately. Do we got any questions? The chat just bugging right now. Let's see. I think I got to refresh my TRW. Okay, yeah. Now I see questions. How do you check if you went wrong somewhere, assuming you check some type of code that confirms it's sent through the webhook? So that's why we set up that callback URL, right? So when we do send a request, we made it so when we do send a request, we get that response back in Voiceflow, right? So if I send this request, boom, we get the status code. Let me just make sure I run this. Send request. We get this, right? If you get this back instead of 100, you know that you didn't go somewhere wrong. This is exactly the variables that Voiceflow received, make.com received. Do you think I should learn programming with AI? You don't need to. Everything no code is everything you need to, get clients and start scaling this business model. It's an AI agency, right? So you don't need to get into custom programming. The power of no code is what allows this business to thrive so much, because with custom coded solutions, it takes, teams, years of developers experience to build these complex tools. But now with no code tools and softwares, you can do that in a couple of hours, right? So that's really the no code opportunity and why you're able to do so much with this new business model. How is this different from Airtable? Well, it's just basically I'm showing you how to get information from Voiceflow to make.com, right? Yeah, I'm just showing you as an example to put this in the spreadsheet. But like I said, you can do this with whatever use case you want, right? You could combine this with your email outreach if you wanted to. Maybe you want to collect an email for a lead capture and then put that into your spreadsheet for automatic outreach. Maybe you wanted to do some type of appointment type of thing. Anything where you need to send information from an input from a bot to make.com, perform some type of operation, and then bring that back to Voiceflow. So what does a processed and not processed one look like? Meaning, would it still look like it's went through like 200 OK? Not always. If data is formatted correctly, then you'll get a 200 OK. But that's why we set up that callback URL, right? So you can see that the data has been received correctly. What other applications can we have with Voiceflow Make integration? Yeah, I just covered that question a second ago. I gave a couple of examples. Yep, you can directly go from Voiceflow to Google Sheets. Seth, good question. You can do it Excel sheet as well. If there's let me see if there's a custom Excel integration. Yeah, so Microsoft 365 Excel, writingmake.com. So yep, you can do the same thing with an Excel sheet. Can you have a single all-in-one AI bot that does both lead capture? Absolutely. Absolutely, you can absolutely do that. You would just, you could set up different pathways. Maybe you wanted to do your original lead capture with the conversation that you've designed yourself, and then you want to have your agentive agent hold all of the backing for the main conversation, like have that be the backbone for the conversation. Or maybe you just want to have the main conversation be with the agentive bot, and then basically you have a second AI analyze the agentive bot. Like basically you set up an intent and say, hey, is someone trying to do a certain action? And then you could go forward and collect their information. So like, you're talking with your agent, and then they're like, okay, yeah, I'm interested in your product or service. Okay, you trigger a new intent where it's like, okay, now let me collect your email and all that good stuff. Let me see more. So essentially, you could do that with anything, including automating sending out emails to anyone that fills out their details from Voiceflow. Exactly. This is just any way you want to get, like, make.com. I'm sure now that you've seen a couple workshops, you've seen the outreach, you see where make.com thrives versus Voiceflow. Voiceflow is more of an agent interface, user to agent conversation, collecting data, stuff like that. Whereas make.com is about doing automations. You're giving it information and it's performing a bunch of automations for certain tasks. So really combining those two tools is incredibly powerful. See, let's get some more questions in. Refresh question. Yeah, so Mike, yeah. I'm sure it's just like, right? So I have everything set up correctly with this other scenario. It's just because I've set the second one up. If I refresh the page, should still be at 0. It'll be fine. It's going to accept it immediately as the trigger. Like I showed you guys exactly, if you want to accept it immediately, have this at 0. Have the scheduling on immediately as data arrives, and then you won't have to make sure you click this run button. It's just, something that I've set up both of these webhooks to the same URL in 2 different tabs, so it's just doing something a little wonky. Let's see, how do I go about the appointment booking structure? Got a client talking about a booking system. Okay, so that's not related to this workshop. I'm just mainly taking questions related to this workshop. All right, that's a love note. Let me look for something. I'm going to take 2 more questions, G's. Looking for something good. Can these AI automations you're reaching? Yes. So basically, with make.com, you can pretty much integrate with anything. Even if you don't natively have like a module built into make.com, you can use these APIs. You can use APIs to make requests. Most tools, Twilio, whatever kind of software, they all have API documentation. They all have ways to send and receive information. And that's really where the power of those tools comes in play. Especially like Bland AI, like you're not going to go in and manually type in phone numbers for Bland AI. That's why they give you the API so you can integrate it with things like Make, automatically set up these systems for yourself. See, can I set it up to run an entire spreadsheet of leads one by one? Yes, that's what Make does. That's what we do in the email outreach. It goes through every lead in the spreadsheet one by one. All right, let's keep going. Is a system like the solar one you did unnecessarily advanced for a demo? Doesn't matter. Like a demo is good to just send out, get some responses from clients, blah, blah, blah. If you have something that's too advanced, that's not a bad thing. Go ahead and send it out. That's not going to put companies off. If anything, that's more incentive for them, right? What about scheduling a meeting on Calendly with Make.com? Yeah, 100% you can do that. Calendly integrations, they have APIs. They have, I showed you with Bland AI, they have a Calendly URL that you can set up. You can do booking straight through there. So 100% you can do that. All right, one more question. Let's get a good question in. Someone said, what are some beginner ways we can make money with this kind of stuff? Start here. Is there any updates? Let's see. How do I go about the appointment booking structure? Got a client talking about a booking system. And okay, that's similar to another questions. I'm not seeing any more questions, so I think we're going to cut this off now. Mainly on these workshops, we're just going to be answering questions about the workshop that we're doing. Everything else, any other kind of questions you have, you can put in, ask captains. You can tag me in the AI automation chat and all that good stuff. Okay, awesome. All right, geez. Great call.